Most of you know how I feel about pharmaceutical companies and how I think they're more interested in profit, their return on investment, than they are in service. Their obligation is to their stockholders. It's not to you and me, the consumer. And that seems odd, but it's true. And this week we're taking a look at Johnson & Johnson. Are they just having a bad time? I mean, look what's happened in the last several years. They've had a run of really what seems like bad luck because they've been caught red-handed doing some things that show us that they're not really interested in us as the primary issue. They've gotten into problems with Tylenol, Benadryl, Motrin. Now the DePuy hip is a big issue that's out there that shows incredible lack of responsibility in terms of worrying about what's happening to people who are using these hips because they're causing lots of problems, including some deaths. So where do we go from here, and what's our next step in terms of solving this problem? First, let's take a look at Johnson & Johnson's new product that's out that's used for babies. And what it is a baby wash. And what they're saying is that a baby wash is really a good thing for a baby in the first 6 weeks of life, despite the fact that where this study was done at the University of Manchester in England, their National Institutes of Health tells us that this is not something that we should be putting on babies. In general, what they say is don't put anything on a baby's skin for the first 6 weeks of its birth, after birth, because the skin is very permeable, it's still forming, the barrier isn't strong, and the skin is very permeable to chemicals that we put on the skin. In fact, it's more permeable at times than when we swallow them. So it gives you some kind of idea of the seriousness of this issue. So the question you have to ask yourself is, why do we need a baby wash? Why couldn't we just use water? Wouldn't that be simple enough to clean and be safe so we're not putting things on the baby? When we look at the product that Johnson & Johnson's come out with, they have lots of things that in low dose don't seem to be a big issue, but it's cumulative, and we're talking about babies. People that are little kids that are going to be exposed for 70, 80, 90 years to a lot of toxins that are in our environment and probably going to be causing some changes that are worrisome over that period of time. And they just kind of take it in stride. I mean, when their FDA comes out and says it's not a good thing to use during the first 6 weeks of life, and they put on the label of the product, keep out of the reach of children, is that a small clue that there might be a problem there? You better bet. You better believe it. Now, what did their study do? Okay, they're looking at what's called transepidermal water loss. And what that means is how much water do we lose from the skin when we put this product on, because that's one of the things that's a concern. But there are many other concerns besides that. Now, this study showed that there wasn't much in the way of loss. In fact, it may have increased the water content of the skin a little bit, which might be a good thing, but don't think that edema is necessarily a good thing either, which is part of what we're looking at here. So what is this article actually saying? First of all, it looks at one minor aspect of the product, and that's what it does to water loss from the skin, which maybe is a good thing, and maybe it's not a good thing, depending on how you interpret it. But they basically ignore the toxic products that are in it and don't make any reference to the whole, what the product does in its entirety. So they're not being honest with us about what's happening in that regard. And then look at it from this point of view. It was also published in a major journal. This article got into the Journal of OB/GYN and Neonatal Nursing, published in February of 2013. What I say to that is shame on you, journal. I mean, why would you publish rubbish like that when all it's really doing is giving the public or whoever reads this article the idea that this is a safe product for us to use? We don't know that at all. And the fact is we're always vulnerable as a public to the advertising, the direct-to-consumer ads, the statements that are being made by pharmaceutical companies trying to sell their product. So we need to take another look at what's happening here and realize that we have a job in front of us of being responsible to do our homework, to find out what's happening when a new product comes out. You know why the pharmaceutical company is promoting it, And if it happens to be a product that's a good one, that's wonderful because then it meets their primary interest, which is they could make some money. But second, it might actually be a service. But a lot of the time, that's not the situation. So here's an opportunity to look at the inside of what happens and see how there's an actual collusion, in my opinion, that is widespread, that goes from the people who are coming out with the article, that who funds it. And of course, in this case, it's Johnson & Johnson who funded it. I checked into that. And there's also the conspiracy of the journals publishing stuff that's really not important information. You can go back and look at Marcia Angel's work years ago as the editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine, saying that the stuff that came across her desk that was being published was not worthy of being presented. So we'll take a hard look, if we're smart, about each new product that comes out, and don't believe those direct-to-consumer ads because they're made by the person selling the product.